Close your eyes and allow yourself to consider a truth that most people are not ready to confront. What if not every person who walks this earth in human form actually carries the same essential spark that gives life its meaning? What if, beneath familiar faces, some carry a hollow void where there should be a soul, a conscience, a yearning for the divine? The idea may feel uncomfortable, even dangerous, but the discomfort is not a sign that it should be ignored. It is a sign that it holds weight, because the truth is, not every person you meet is on the same spiritual journey. Some are here not to grow, to learn, to create, or to love, but to mimic, consume, and manipulate. Their presence is not defined by a higher calling or an inner compass, but by a gnawing emptiness that seeks to take rather than give. And while they may look like us, speak like us, and even laugh like us, something essential is missing, and that something is the soul. The soul is not a poetic idea or a romantic notion. It is the central axis of being. It is the force that breathes purpose into our struggles and depth into our joy. It is the longing that drives us to seek truth, to feel awe, to suffer for love, and to strive toward something greater than ourselves. Those who possess a soul are capable of reflection, remorse, wonder, and reverence. They are shaped by conscience, held accountable by their own moral awareness, and moved by moments of beauty or grief that stir something sacred within. But not all beings in human form carry this inner fire. Some are hollow vessels. They are not fallen souls who lost their way. They are structures without that divine presence from the start. Their minds function, but only as imitations of awareness. Their emotions, when expressed, are simulations, replications of what they think others expect. They lack the intrinsic tether that connects most of us to something higher. You can often sense it in the way they move through life, not drawn toward growth or truth, but guided only by desire, power, or approval. They are placeholders for something that never arrived. From ancient times, this disturbing truth has been quietly acknowledged. Esoteric texts across spiritual traditions speak of beings born without light. In the Gnostic writings of the Pistis Sophia, there are references to those created without a divine spark, operating in the world to ensnare those who carry true spirit. In the Vedic traditions, there is the concept of the Asuras, beings who look like humans but lack the divine impulse that animates spiritual evolution. Even in Christian scriptures, the parable of the wheat and the tares warns that not all who dwell among us are children of light. These are not simply metaphorical warnings or theological devices. They are spiritual diagnoses, passed through generations under different names, but pointing to the same unsettling reality. In more contemporary terms, psychology attempts to name this phenomenon with labels such as narcissist, sociopath, or antisocial personality disorder. But those labels, while helpful in identifying behavioral patterns, fall short. Psychology speaks to behavior and brain chemistry, but it cannot fully grasp what esotericism reveals about essence, because not every person who suffers from mental illness is soulless, and not every soulless being appears disturbed. Many are charming, successful, articulate. They may hold positions of leadership or admiration, but their energy tells a different story. And if you've ever walked away from an encounter with someone feeling inexplicably drained, confused, or spiritually shaken, you may have brushed against such an absence. One of the most telling signs is a persistent emotional vacancy. There is a hollowness in their presence that no amount of words can disguise. Their laughter, when it comes, feels hollow or forced. When others express deep emotions, they mimic expected reactions, but there is no resonance behind their eyes. They nod in agreement when sadness is shared, but they do not feel it. Their emotional responses are surface level, fleeting, context-based, and disconnected from any real internal experience. And what makes it even more difficult to identify is that they often mirror the emotions of those around them. But it's mimicry, not empathy. It is a calculated response designed to maintain control or gain trust. True empathy, the capacity to feel with another, to stand inside their suffering, to rejoice in their joy, is absent. They do not respond to pain with compassion. They observe it, measure it, sometimes even exploit it. But they do not feel it. The lack is not in behavior alone. It is an incapacity that runs to the root. You might witness this in how they interact with vulnerability. When someone around them is deeply moved, they may respond with impatience, awkwardness, or even disdain. Their comfort lies not in connection, but in control. They are not drawn toward tenderness or intimacy, but toward advantage. Their interest in others is often utilitarian. Relationships are tools, not sacred spaces for growth or love. Their connections are built not on shared depth, but on leverage and utility. And once the purpose of a relationship is fulfilled, they discard it with an eerie lack of emotion. It isn't always dramatic. Often it's subtle, a slow erosion of care, a growing detachment masked by politeness or excuses. If you've ever felt deeply bonded to someone, only to realize later that your bond meant nothing to them, you may have experienced this. They rarely endure silence or stillness. The void within them is too loud. Silence is a mirror, and they fear what it reflects. In moments of quiet, when nothing external is happening, their agitation grows. They will fill the space with noise, chatter, distractions, anything to avoid being left alone with themselves. Because what resides within is not peace, it is absence, and that absence is unbearable. So they escape into compulsive behaviors, endless scrolling, constant talking, or rituals of consumption that mask the emptiness but never soothe it. You may also notice the discrepancy between their language and their energy. They may speak with great eloquence about love, justice, or compassion. They may quote spiritual texts, repeat therapeutic jargon, or appear deeply engaged in self-improvement. But their presence tells another story. It is cold, disconnected, and rigid. There is no warmth, no coherence between what they say and what they are. Their words are borrowed. Their ideas are second-hand. There is no inner alignment between principle and action. Those who are energetically attuned sense this dissonance immediately, even if they cannot articulate it. Something just feels off, and the more time you spend with them, the more you begin to doubt your own intuition. That is part of their effect. They create an energetic fog, not through sorcery, but through incoherence. Your nervous system picks up on their absence, and it makes you question yourself. Their stories often shift. Their beliefs evolve overnight. Their loyalties change without explanation. This chameleon-like behavior is not growth. It is a survival strategy. They have no stable center, no axis of being. What you see depends on what they want from you. Their identity is situational, not rooted. It adapts not to evolve, but to deceive. In intimate relationships, the pattern becomes even clearer. In the beginning, they may present an idealized version of themselves, attentive, affectionate, even deeply vulnerable. But this is often a strategy. They mimic emotional closeness to gain access. And once that bond is secure, the mask begins to slip. The affection fades. The attentiveness turns to control. The vulnerability becomes manipulation. And you're left wondering how someone who seems so connected can become so cold. This pattern is commonly known in psychological circles as narcissistic abuse. But from a spiritual lens, it is something deeper. It is energetic vampirism, the draining of vitality from a soulful being by one who cannot generate their own light. They feed not on blood, but on energy, attention, and emotional investment. Their intimacy is not love, it is possession. Another telling feature is their inability to experience awe. When others are moved by beauty, wonder, or mystery, they remain unmoved. They may watch the same sunset, hear the same music, witness the same miracle, but their soul remains untouched. Because the soul is the vessel through which awe is received. And when that vessel is absent, no matter how beautiful the experience, it passes through them like wind through a hollow tree. They may nod, smile, or even pretend to be moved, but the depth of response is missing. They live in a world of surfaces, and their goals reflect this. They seek wealth, recognition, pleasure, or dominance, but never transcendence. Their desires are always outward, horizontal. They reach into the world, but never upward toward the divine. And their thoughts mirror this flatness. When you speak with them about deeper matters, death, morality, meaning, they deflect or dismiss. They lack the vocabulary of the soul, and so they rely on clichés, borrowed slogans, or rehearsed beliefs. They fear deep conversation because it threatens to expose their lack of depth. And when their polished image is challenged by real intimacy or real suffering, they become defensive, cold, or even cruel. Because where the soul should be, a center of conscience and reflection, there is nothing, just an echo chamber of borrowed thought and recycled emotion. The clearest evidence of this absence is often in their eyes. Those who are spiritually sensitive describe it in hushed tones, the moment they look into the eyes of a soulless person and see no light. It is not just emptiness, it is a void, a flatness that feels unnatural, even disturbing. Eyes are often called the windows to the soul. And when there is no soul, those windows open onto darkness. Not the darkness of pain or trauma, but the darkness of non-being. It is a haunting thing to behold, because even the most wounded or broken soul still carries a flicker of light, but these eyes reveal nothing, no presence, no reflection, no life, only a subtle coldness that repels rather than connects. You may not see it immediately, but once you do, you will never forget it. That gaze stays with you. Not because it wounds, but because it reveals a truth you were not ready to know. That not everyone is what they seem, and that some who wear the mask of humanity are not truly human in the ways that matter most. And that realization, though unsettling, is the beginning of wisdom. Once you begin to accept the idea that not all human-shaped beings carry the same essence within them, your awareness starts to shift. You become more sensitive to the way energy moves in conversations, in glances, in silences that linger longer than they should. You start to feel the difference between someone who nourishes your presence and someone who siphons it without a word. The soulless do not drain your energy because they're evil or malicious in the cartoonish sense. They do so because they cannot produce energy of their own. They are not rooted in the creative field of life. They operate more like shadows, feeding on light they can't generate. When a soulful person enters a room, something subtle changes. The air feels clearer, the energy warmer, more alive. But when a soulless person walks in, there is a drop in temperature, not physical but emotional. The air becomes dense. People may start to feel irritable, unfocused, or emotionally off-center. The change is rarely dramatic, it's quiet. It creeps in like fog over a calm field. And unless you know what to look for, you might blame yourself for the shift. That's the cruel trick of these encounters. They destabilize your inner knowing. They make you question your instincts, but over time, a pattern emerges. The people who leave you consistently drained, who confuse your thoughts, who twist your feelings, are not just difficult personalities. They are energetic black holes. The soul, when vibrant and whole, radiates presence. The soulless, by contrast, create disturbance. And that disturbance is not always loud. It's often dressed in warmth, charm, even spirituality. They wear the words of enlightenment like borrowed clothing. They speak of awakening, love, and transformation. But when you sit with them long enough, their stillness betrays them. There's no current beneath the surface, no inner depth, just echo and repetition, movements without meaning. It's a strange thing to witness, someone speaking about light while radiating cold. You feel the mismatch in your bones. Their words glide, but their energy clings, sticks, confuses. You leave feeling like you've heard something profound, but you can't remember what it was. And you find yourself restless, unsettled, looking for something that feels like it's slipped through your fingers. That's how the soulless affect you, not through shock, but through subtle erosion. They often become fixtures in spiritual, healing, or psychological communities, places where the appearance of depth is easy to simulate. They learn the vocabulary, they mimic the gestures, they know how to bow, to speak gently, to offer insight that sounds transformative, but nothing about them changes. They remain rooted in the same cycles of manipulation and control, even as they surround themselves with symbols of wisdom. And those who are not anchored in their own intuition are the most vulnerable to this deception. They want to believe in the goodness of others. They want to assume everyone has a light within them, waiting to be nurtured. But there is a difference between a dimmed light and no light at all. One can be rekindled. The other was never lit. The soulless can mimic care, but not embody it. They can repeat the words of healing, but not offer the presence that makes healing possible. They can say, "I'm here for you," but their energy says, "You are alone." And you feel the dissonance, even if you can't explain it. You hear their apologies, but you don't feel their remorse. You hear their declarations of love, but you don't feel their heart. You sense a hollowness behind every tender word, a slight pause, a mechanical edge, like a puppet that hasn't quite mastered being human. This absence of remorse is perhaps the most chilling trait. Even when confronted with the pain they've caused, they either deny it, justify it, or redirect the blame. If they offer an apology, it lacks soul. It's flat, transactional, calculated. They say sorry, like someone reciting a script, not like someone who feels the weight of another's suffering. A soulful person apologizes with their entire being, with eyes, voice, posture. You feel the sincerity radiate from them. The soulless simulate apology without ever touching regret. They don't change, not because they can't understand what they did, but because there's nothing inside to truly motivate change. The mechanisms for transformation require internal conflict, conscience, and humility, qualities that live in the soul. Without those, the person becomes fixed, incapable of growth. And so they repeat cycles, hurting, gaslighting, confusing, withdrawing. They play roles, cast others into parts, and always position themselves as either savior or victim. Rarely will they allow themselves to be seen as the perpetrator. To acknowledge harm would require looking inward, and there is nothing inward to look at. Only a maze of reflections that never reach a center. This pattern creates a particular kind of exhaustion in those around them. Not the kind of tiredness you feel after a long day, but a soul-level fatigue that leaves you questioning your own reality. You feel invaded but can't explain how. You feel manipulated but can't point to the moment it happened. You feel emotionally raw and distant at the same time. Therapists, empaths, and healers who work with such individuals often report strange symptoms: foggy thinking, sudden fatigue, emotional numbness, or even physical illness. These are not random effects. They are the consequences of interacting with someone who takes but never gives. Someone who consumes your light because they have none of their own. And this isn't about cruelty in the traditional sense. The soulless are not always actively malicious. Some are charming, helpful, even funny. But everything they offer is surface level, part of a larger strategy to maintain a connection they don't emotionally value, but energetically require. You may notice that their stories never really add up. Their narratives shift depending on the audience. One day they're a victim of abuse, the next they're a wise guide, the next they're just misunderstood. They adapt like mirrors, always reflecting what's safest, what's most convincing. But they lack consistency. Their values change, their memories change, their truths change. And the deeper you go into conversation, the more circular it becomes. There's no center to hold on to, no solid ground. And when you challenge them, gently or directly, you often trigger unexpected aggression, or they retreat into vague confusion. You are made to feel like the aggressor, even when you're seeking clarity. That's the trick. They destabilize your sense of justice by never giving you firm ground to stand on. To protect yourself, you must reclaim your center. You must remember what it feels like to stand inside your own presence. That feeling of alignment, of being whole, of being aware. Start every morning by coming back into your body. Breathe into your chest, your belly, your legs. Feel where your soul lives. Speak to it, acknowledge it, feed it with beauty, with silence, with truth. The more you nourish your own soul, the more clearly you will recognize those who have none. You'll feel it in their handshake, in their gaze, in the way your skin reacts when they walk into the room. Not everyone will understand this sensitivity. Some will call you paranoid or judgmental, but discernment is not judgment. Discernment is protection. It's the shield the soul creates when it knows something isn't right, and you owe it to your own vitality to listen. There are practical steps too. Limit vulnerability. With those who feel energetically hollow, avoid sharing your dreams, your traumas, your inner truths. These are sacred. They should be handled with reverence, not consumed as tools for manipulation. Be kind, but do not open your heart to everyone. Be respectful, but do not offer your trust freely. Respect must flow in both directions. Do not be fooled by titles, by eloquence, or by public displays of virtue. The world is full of people who speak of light, but cast shadows wherever they go. Instead, learn to feel what words cannot tell you. How does someone's presence affect your body, your breath, your peace? That is the real language, the one that does not lie. Another method is the stillness test. Spend time with someone in complete silence. No words, no distractions, just stillness. Watch how they respond. Those with soul will eventually sink into presence. Their eyes will soften, their breath will slow, and the space between you will fill with quiet warmth. Those without soul will squirm. They will fidget, change subjects, laugh nervously, or try to break the silence. Because silence reveals too much. It reflects the hollowness they carry, and they cannot bear to see that reflection mirrored back. Recognizing a soulless person is not about hate. It's about clarity. It's about understanding the energetic terrain of the world you live in. You are not here to fix them. You are not here to pity them. You are here to guard your own flame, to walk your own path, to stay rooted in your own light. And sometimes that means walking away from what confuses, from what drains, from what entangles. You owe no one your energy, especially not those who see your energy as a resource rather than a gift. When you start living this way, discerning, grounded, luminous, you become less easy to manipulate. You become less tasty to those who feed on others. Your soul begins to radiate in a way that no performance can replicate, and the world starts to respond. The hollow ones may still find you, but they will not linger. Your clarity will discomfort them. Your presence will repel what is false, and you will begin to attract those whose light matches your own. It is not a lonely path. It is simply one where depth recognizes depth, where soul calls to soul, and in that sacred recognition, real communion becomes possible. There is a sacred power in remembering that your energy is not a commodity. It is a living flame, born of divine spark, shaped by every moment of love, sorrow, awakening, and doubt that you've ever endured and grown from. And when that energy is drained or violated by the presence of someone who cannot reciprocate it, someone whose emptiness becomes a vacuum pulling your essence inward, you are not imagining it. You are encountering a being whose structure mimics the human, but whose center remains untouched by soul. The cost of ignoring this is subtle but cumulative. You don't just lose time, you lose clarity, you lose softness, you lose the parts of yourself that once opened easily and trusted naturally. Over time, the soul begins to shrink in response to prolonged exposure to hollowness. Not because it is weak, but because it learns to protect itself. It curls inward like a wounded animal, waiting to see if the world is still safe. And this is why recognizing the soulless is not just about avoiding harm. It is about recovering what was numbed, forgotten, or silenced within you. Some who encounter this concept for the first time resist it. The idea that not everyone has a soul sounds harsh, elitist, even cruel. But discernment is not elitism. It is wisdom born of experience. A soulful person sees beauty in suffering, finds meaning in struggle, and is moved to tears by the sacred hidden in ordinary things. They do not withdraw from the pain of others. They lean in, not out of obligation, but because their soul cannot look away. They may be flawed, even broken at times, but the cracks let the light in. Their remorse is real. Their questions are honest. Their eyes reflect a history of inner wrestling, of learning how to become more than just a reflex of their own pain. The soulless, by contrast, are not just indifferent to this sacred unfolding, they are incapable of it. You can offer them depth, vulnerability, sacred space, and they will stand in the middle of it, like someone staring at a language they've never learned to speak. And sometimes they will pretend they understand. They will borrow your language, mirror your emotions, mimic your spiritual curiosity. But the more you offer, the more you begin to notice the strange emptiness that surrounds their presence, like a scentless flower that looks beautiful but offers nothing to the bees. One of the clearest distinctions becomes apparent in how these beings respond to mystery. Mystery is the heartbeat of the soul. It is what draws us into contemplation, into surrender, into humility. Those with soul understand that not everything can or should be explained. They find beauty in what cannot be resolved. But the soulless are uncomfortable with ambiguity. They crave control, certainty, dominance. Mystery threatens them. It reveals how little they actually know, how little of life they feel beneath the surface. You will see this in how they respond to your pain. If you share something sacred, some wound, some unnameable ache, they may respond with impatience, condescension, or a fixed solution. They do not hold space. They do not honor the silence between words. Instead, they interrupt with ego or distraction, as if the very act of witnessing your truth disrupts the narrative they need to maintain about themselves. They do not want intimacy. They want compliance. And if they sense you slipping from their grasp, they escalate. More charm, more attention, more stories designed to pull you back into orbit. But orbiting what? That's the thing. There's nothing at the center. And so, the people who live with soul must learn to protect themselves not by closing, but by seeing clearly, not by fearing darkness, but by recognizing when it wears a mask of light. The masks vary. Some wear kindness like armor. Others wear intelligence like a crown. Some are so spiritual they seem to float above conflict, never admitting fault, never showing true vulnerability. But the test is always the same. Can they sit in silence? Can they witness truth without needing to fix or dominate it? Do their words align with their actions, even when no one is watching? Do they apologize in a way that feels like repentance, or do they speak as actors reciting lines? The soul speaks in coherence. It stumbles sometimes, but it never deceives for long. The soulless traffic in performance. Their entire presence is a carefully curated script, constantly edited based on what gains them favor or advantage. They do not grow. They adapt, but adaptation without transformation is manipulation. It is survival, not evolution. If you want to truly protect your energy, you must begin with the sacred act of self-anchoring. Ground yourself not in labels or spiritual performance, but in your own experience. What does your breath feel like when you're safe? What does your body feel like after a conversation with someone who truly sees you? What changes when you're in the presence of someone who listens from their heart, not just with their ears? Begin to catalogue these experiences, not intellectually, but energetically. Your body knows. Your heart knows. And once you begin to trust that knowing again, the soulless become easier to recognize. They are not rare, they are not monsters, but they are real. And they are everywhere, in boardrooms and bedrooms, in temples and schools, behind smiling faces and perfect manners. Some don't even know they are hollow. They are not aware of what they lack. Others know, and they've learned how to cloak it. But either way, your job is not to fix them. It is to see clearly, stay rooted, and walk away when your light is being dimmed by someone who can never offer their own in return. And when you do walk away, you may feel grief, not for what was, but for what you hoped would be. That grief is holy. It is the final proof that your soul is intact, because only those with soul grieve for what never truly existed. Only those with soul feel the ache of potential that was never fulfilled. Let that grief move through you like rain. Let it clear the dust from your vision, and then let it leave. What remains is your light, unborrowed, undimmed, alive. Your soul is not fragile. It is resilient, ancient, luminous. It knows how to heal. It knows how to return to its own rhythm. But it cannot do this if you continue feeding it to the hollow. Reserve your softness for those who deserve it. Let your fire warm only those who bring their own flame, and speak not just with your voice, but with your presence. The presence that says, I am whole, I am awake. I will not dim my light for those who cannot see. You do not owe your energy to everyone. You owe it to truth, to beauty, to love that expands, not love that contracts, to mystery that nourishes, not manipulation that drains. So when you meet someone and you feel confused, tired, doubtful, hollow, listen. When you sense that their language is polished, but their gaze is vacant, listen. When you feel yourself shrinking in their presence, questioning your worth, doubting your joy, listen. You are not paranoid. You are perceiving. You are not cold. You are discerning. And in a world where performance often masquerades as presence, discernment is a sacred gift. Guard it, use it, live by it, because your soul was not given to you to be drained. It was given to light the path, not just for yourself, but for others who are still trying to find their way through the fog. That is the true calling of the soulful, to walk this world awake, to recognize the hollow and still remain whole, to offer light not to those who seek to consume it, but to those who burn with it too. Let your energy serve what is real. Let your presence be medicine, not prey. Let your soul speak louder than any mask ever could. And know that you are not alone. Others like you walk quietly, burn brightly, and recognize what you now see. Stay with them, walk with them, build with them. Because in a world where the soulless hide in plain sight, the greatest act of resistance is to live with radiant truth and never let it be dimmed.